Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? Happy Friday. It's a beautiful Friday here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. Big show today. Great show today. Jared Dubin of CBS Sports is set to join me coming up 11 o'clock, top of the hour. He's going to join me. We're going to talk Team USA barely escaping Serbia, rallying back after being down by as much as 17 points. John Buzzard, listener, won a little contest. Contest. He won a contest that we had a little ways back, so he's going to join me at 11:20. We're doing Fun List Friday. Should be a great conversation with him. Really looking forward to that. But I have to start the show with what happened yesterday. Team USA, a team that is revered, especially by people around my age who grew up watching Steph and LeBron and Kevin Durant. Those three guys really kind of lead the NBA. And now we get these guys kind of towards the end of their careers leading Team USA in the Olympics. And it has been kind of boring for the most part. They've just kind of rolled through everybody once the actual Olympic Games have started, outside of the South Sudan game before the Olympics even started. Everything's been pretty boring. Everything's gone according to plan, but nothing went according to plan yesterday. Team USA comes out. Serbia's hitting threes all over the place. The defense for Team USA was terrible. Okay, the only people that had more wide open shots yesterday during the Olympics than Serbia were the people competing in the archery and the shooting competitions. I mean, just open three, open three, open three. And they were making what felt like all of them. Meanwhile, the only consistent offense that Team USA had was in the form of Steph Curry. Hallelujah for Steph Curry. And as I've reflected on the game, and I've been on Twitter and I've watched people freak out and then rejoice over the win, this is why we love March Madness. That has kind of been my takeaway. As I sat back and I watched this game, I was like, this feels so much like a 14 seed playing against a 3 seed, and the 14 seed gets super hot from 3, and they're raining things in from all over the place. And you can look at the 3 seed and they kind of tighten up a little bit, but there's also like this new thing where they get really locked in, and then the best players take over and the 3 seed wins by 5 points. That was what yesterday felt like. It felt so much like a March Madness event. Single elimination. One team gets hot, anything can happen, and that's what we saw yesterday. We also saw proof of just how much better the basketball around the world has gotten. Okay, like the basketball talent throughout the globe is simply incredible. Okay, after watching yesterday, I think it's clear that Nikola Jokic is hands down the best player in the world. Thought he proved that yesterday. Okay, there's, one, maybe two other guys in the world who could take that severely less talented Serbian team and go toe-to-toe with the second best Olympic team ever behind the 92 Dream Team. Okay, there's one guy who can do it, obviously, in Jokic, but the other guy, maybe Luka could do it, but that's really it. Okay, and I know that Jokic didn't light it up in terms of shooting the ball. He wasn't super efficient, 0 of 6 from 3, 6 of 16 from the floor, but his ability to read defenses and make his teammates better is just second to none. I mean, the dude is simply incredible, and we got to see that in full form yesterday, and then the shooting from the rest of the Serbian team was incredible, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Serbia played out of their minds yesterday. They couldn't have played any better. Now, let me address the 3 best basketball players of my generation. LeBron James. I got to be honest. I am not a LeBron James fan. Every time I was peeking at the score because I was at the gym while the game was on. I went back and watched it later last night. I'm peeking at the score, and I'm just like, geez, I kind of hope Team USA loses. I won't lie to you. That's kind of how I felt. I was rooting for the show because I was like, if Team USA loses, I've got a LeBron rant ready to go. And then, LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant take over, and they end up winning the thing. But love him or hate him when it comes to LeBron James, he showed up. He did. He had a triple-double. He only missed 3 shots, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists. Just doing what he's doing at his age is insane. We'll likely never see anything like this again. And look, the dude is still highly competitive at the age of, 38, 39, however old he is. Walking up and saying, I will defend Nikola Jokic in the fourth quarter. And like that really, I thought, tilted the tide in Team USA's direction. Like LeBron James, what we've seen from him really for the past 3 years has been nothing short of incredible. And let's just be honest, like, was there anyone else? There isn't anyone else. There isn't anyone else in the history of basketball that you would have faith in at the age of 39 to lead Team USA in what is probably the best pool of Olympic talent we've ever seen. There's not another 39-year-old you would trust to lead Team USA to the gold medal game outside of LeBron James. He's truly incredible, and I don't have to say too much more because just go to Twitter and all the LeBron people will be all over it in there. Now, I want to move to Steph Curry, who is near and dear to my heart. I think we all fell in love with Steph Curry when he went crazy at Davidson during March Madness. And, he showed yesterday why he's the best shooter ever. Because he is. You just knew he was going to play well. You just knew that he was. It was a big game, and he always shows up in big games at some point. Okay, he was also extremely due. He had really struggled in the Olympics up until yesterday, where he scored 36 points on 9 of 14 shooting from 3, and he grabbed eight rebounds, which I think is pretty impressive. Okay, he was incredible. Like I said, he was the only offense that Team USA had early in the game, and he was really their only source of offense through the entire game. He was their only consistent guy who was going out and hitting shots, and the dude was just incredible. He's the best point guard ever. Okay, like, love Isaiah Thomas. I love Magic Johnson, but they don't score it like he does. They don't shoot it like he does. They don't command the attention that he does. All right, it's Steph Curry, man. The best point guard ever. He's on my Mount Rushmore. That's probably a little hot takey, but that's not the point of this segment. So I'm going to leave that for another day. And then Kevin Durant. This is the guy that I really want to harp on, because if you watched the game yesterday, or if you just kept track of the game yesterday, then you know how great Steph Curry was, and you know how great LeBron James was. Okay, you know how revered those guys are in terms of the history of basketball. And then we have Kevin Durant, who's the misfit of these three guys. Okay, these are, the three musketeers of my generation. LeBron's probably the leader, Steph is second, and then you've got Kevin Durant, and he's, the third guy, which is cool, right? But in my opinion, he is the most unique of the three of them. He's unique in both the way that he plays basketball. He's unique in terms of his personality. Okay, like a lot of these guys on Team USA, they're married. They have some sort of serious girlfriend. Not Kevin Durant. He is a bachelor through and through, which in and of its own self makes him unique. Not bad, not better, just unique, right? And his personality. I mean, he woke up this morning a little after 5 a.m., logged on to Twitter, and started going at random people that he doesn't know, trying to educate them about basketball. It's incredible. We will never see a person like this again. He's just so incredibly unique in the way that he loves basketball, in the way that he plays basketball, and just his personality in general. And when it comes to the conversation about the greatest players ever, it feels like he's been ostracized, even though he's a top 15 player of all time, 13th to be exact. He's the best scorer that I think we've ever seen. Like, if we took the 15 best players ever and we grabbed a random person who didn't know anything about basketball, didn't know how many MVPs everyone had, didn't know how many championships everybody had won, if we took that guy and we brought him out to the blacktop and we lined up the 15 best players ever, and we walked them through and we're like, all right, this is LeBron James, he's got like a good handle. He's not the best shooter. He's the best athlete out here. They'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then you'd walk over, you'd be like, here's Steph Curry. He's the best shooter here. He's a great ball handler. He's not super good defensively though. And he's like 6'3". You'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then you walk over and be like, this is Shaquille O'Neal. He's, the most dominant player ever physically, but he can't make free throws. He'd be kind of lackadaisical sometimes. He's not always super excited to play basketball. And you'd be like, I don't know if I want a guy with that kind of demeanor. You'd be like, okay. And then you'd be like, here's Kevin Durant. This guy loves basketball because that's evident if you've heard him do any interview ever. He loves basketball. He's the second tallest guy out here. He's the second best shooter out here. He's got a great handle. You're like, oh, he's pretty good offensively. What about on defense? Oh, because he's 7 feet tall and he's pretty quick, he can guard just about anybody. You'd be like, I want that guy. His skill set is incredibly unique on both ends of the floor, but especially offensively. And one of the cool things about watching Team USA is we see guys that kind of separate, right? Because let's be honest, all these guys are alphas on their NBA teams. And then we show up to Team USA and we see kind of who separates. Who are the alphas among the alphas? And this year it's been LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry. Okay, Kevin Durant has kind of separated himself from everyone else in terms of his scoring ability. When the game was on the line, and Team USA needed a bucket to put Serbia away yesterday, they didn't go to Steph Curry, who was blazing hot and it felt like he hadn't missed all afternoon. They didn't go to LeBron James, who's been the best player on that team ever since they were doing their exhibition games. Okay, they didn't go to the second best player of all time in LeBron James. They went to Kevin Durant. Because on a team filled with Hall of Famers, everyone on that team knows that when it comes to getting just one bucket, that's the guy throughout the entire history of basketball. You need one bucket, you call Kevin Durant. Everyone on that team, once again, a team filled with Hall of Famers, knew that they had to get the ball to Kevin freaking Durant. And he got the ball, and Joel Embiid runs up to set a ball screen, and Kevin Durant's like, no, I don't need a ball screen. I don't need a ball screen. Tween, cross, creates separation, pulls up, and as soon as he goes into the jump shot for him, you're like, oh yeah, that's undoubtedly going in because it's Kevin Durant. Okay? That's the guy you go to when you need a bucket. But that's really not what makes him unique, because let's be honest, there are plenty of players throughout the history of basketball that can get a bucket when you need them to. Okay, Kobe Bryant could get a bucket when you needed him to. Michael Jordan, obviously. LeBron can get a bucket when you need him to. Steph. Okay, there's a plethora of guys that you can just throw the ball to and they can go score. That's what makes great players great. But what I think makes Kevin Durant unique is the fact that he is the ultimate chameleon. You can drop him in any era, on any team, and he's going to fit in. If you need him to run your offense and dominate the ball and bring it up and be the ball handler in pick and roll type scenarios, then he can do that. He's a skilled enough ball handler that he can totally do it when he finishes at the rim at a high level as well. So if you need him to hold the basketball and be the focal point of your offense, he can do it. But if you need him to play off the ball, he can do that as well because he's such a great shooter, whether it's catch and shoot, whether it's catch and then attack a closeout. He can do it. Offensively, he can fit into any offensive system in any era because he's just so uniquely gifted offensively. And then on the defensive end of the floor, he's 7 feet tall. He's taller than Bam Adebayo and he's taller than Anthony Davis. Those two guys play center for Team USA. Okay, because he's so tall and long, he can defend 7-footers, he can defend wings, he can defend some guards. Okay, it's his size and length allow him to fit into any defensive scheme in the history of basketball, in any era, because of the size and the length that he possesses. He is the ultimate chameleon when it comes to basketball. That is what makes him one of the most unique talents ever. He can fit into onto whatever team in whatever era because of his vast skill sets on both ends of the floor. But don't ask him to lead. That's the one thing he could never figure out. Okay, in his eyes, his job is just to play basketball, and it's the coach's job to lead, which is partially true. It is. But let's be serious here. When we talk about the players that everyone would rank above him, that is the one thing that they all figured out. The players that win titles in basketball are usually great leaders. Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. The list goes on. Kobe Bryant. Okay, the best players ever, the ones that win titles and do the things that we really care about as consumers, lead at a high level. And now, while Kevin Durant is probably better from a basketball standpoint than some of the guys that I just mentioned, he'll never be considered greater than them, and rightfully so, because he never figured out how to lead. The 2 titles he's won, he wasn't the guy. He was the best player on the team, but he wasn't the guy, which is important. Okay, the guys that I just mentioned, Magic Johnson, Steph Curry, LeBron, Michael. Kevin Durant's just not like any of those guys from a leadership standpoint. And because of that, we rank him a little bit lower on the greatest player of all time poll, which is understandable, and I agree with it. But if I need a bucket, I'm not calling Michael Jordan. I'm not calling Kobe Bryant. I'm not calling Steph Curry. I'm calling Kevin Durant, just like Team USA just did yesterday. On the best team we've seen since the 1992 Dream Team, Kevin Durant has separated himself from everyone else in terms of his one-on-one scoring ability. LeBron James and Steph Curry have separated themselves as well. Those guys have been the undoubted 3 best players on this team. Okay, and in a league where it feels like the NBA fans are eager to move on to the Anthony Edwards era of things because he's kind of the next big thing. He's on this team, by the way. He wasn't very good yesterday. But in a league where Anthony Edwards is the next big thing, and people are excited about Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, the best player on the team that just won the finals. These 3 old guys, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Steph Curry, yeah, those 3 old guys have been Team USA's best players. And as boring as Team USA has been to watch, I had an absolute blast watching that game yesterday. Seeing the 3 players from my generation that are going to define it was incredible. And they are set to go on the road. On the road. They are on the road. They're at France tomorrow, okay? That game is going to be absolutely electric. I can't wait for it. I have thoughts on that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Top of the hour. Jared Dubin, CBS Sports. He's going to join me. We're going to talk a little bit about Team USA's win yesterday over Serbia, their game tomorrow against France, a little bit of NFL stuff as well. 11:20, Funless Friday with John Buzzard. Can't wait for that. That should be a lot of fun as well. But tomorrow, we have like legitimate sports things to watch this weekend, and I cannot wait. Like my plan for tomorrow. Oh man, I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to get up. I'm going to the movies tomorrow. I'm hopefully going to watch the new Wolverine and Deadpool movie. Can't wait for that. I'm super pumped. Going to do that. And then I'm going to come home and I'm going to sit down on the couch and I'm going to watch the gold medal game between Team USA and France tomorrow at 3:30. Get ready for cinema. I think the game is going to be electric. It's going to be incredible. This is going to be one of the best atmospheres we have ever seen for any gold medal game. Okay, we get to see LeBron, Steph, and Kevin Durant. Okay, the three best players of my generation. We get to see all three of them play together one more time on Saturday, tomorrow. And I expect for France to give the United States all they can handle. France is a good team, right? Like, you don't get to the gold medal game unless you're a good team. They have plenty of guys that can shoot. They've got multiple NBA guys. They have a ton of size. They are the only team in the Olympics that can match the size of Team USA. Okay, and part of why this game is going to be so great is because France has home court advantage. They do, and those French people they're kind of nuts. I don't know if you watch the opening ceremonies, but those people are kind of crazy. Okay, so they're going to be going crazy. They don't like Joel Embiid. This is kind of the story to know heading into the game. Joel Embiid had the option to play for one of three teams in the Olympics. He could have played for France, Cabo, I believe, or Team USA. And obviously he chose Team USA. He pretty much picked them over France. That's how the French feel, at least. And let's be honest, who wouldn't pick Team USA over France? We're the best country in the world. Come on now. That's why Joel Embiid has been booed in every game that he's played. That crowd is going to be absolutely insane. France has legitimate home court advantage in this game. And I think it's going to be really tough for Team USA. But they should win. Okay, I'm not saying that they're going to lose, but they are 16.5-point favorites over France. But there is very much a world where they can lose. Okay, I think we saw that yesterday against Serbia. Okay, they were 14.5-point favorites at tip. And let's be honest, they probably should have lost yesterday. Thanks to Steph Curry for going crazy. Thanks to LeBron for playing great, triple-double. And thanks to Kevin Durant for closing the game out with 7 points in the fourth quarter and the put-away bucket. Okay, and so they were able to pull it out. But tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, when you play Serbia, you got to worry about Bogdanovic, right, who plays for the Hawks, and you got to worry about Nikola Jokic, and that's really it. The other guys, it's like, yeah, like they're good players, but they're not NBA players. Okay, when you play France, they've got like 6 or 7 NBA guys. And obviously the head of that snake is Victor Wembanyama. And look, Spurs won 21 games last year, which isn't very many. And because of that, I feel as though there are a lot of Americans that didn't exactly find themselves on the couch watching the Spurs on League Pass. I was one of those Americans that decided to do that. And I'm telling, oh man, if you haven't seen Wemby play, you're going to get an absolute show tomorrow. He struggled some offensively in the Olympics, but he is more than capable of dominating a game on the offensive end, and he always dominates a game on the defensive end. I mean, you could cut the court in half and just let Wemby defend one half of it, just because of his length and his size and his speed and his quickness. Okay, he's going to retire as the best defender we've ever seen. Okay, I that's got the Jonathan Smith stamp on it. Okay, so if you haven't seen him play, you're going to be blown away by what he does defensively. There are going to be multiple moments where you're just like, what just happened? How did he do that? I've never seen anyone do that before. Okay, you're going to have a few of those moments with him on the defensive side of the ball. The question and what has to happen for France to win is for Wemby to play great on the offensive end, which he's more than capable of doing. Just ask Nikola Jokic. Now, as I said, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I love the NBA. I watch it year round. Okay, like when the season starts, like my non-football nights will be spent watching the NBA in October, right? Like I said, I'm a bit of a psycho, but that's okay. And so last year, the regular season's winding down. I'm like, you know what? I want to watch the Spurs play the Nuggets. It's game 81. Okay, so I'm sitting back and I'm watching this. The Spurs are 20-60. The Nuggets have firm hold of the number one seed in the Western Conference. And I'm watching, and the Nuggets, they're like, we want to hold on to the one seed. They come out, they just start drubbing the Spurs. Okay, they're up by 21 points in the third quarter. Now I'm getting ready to turn the game off. But then Wemby scored 17 points in 3 minutes. Cut the lead down to like 6. And the Spurs ended up coming back and winning that game because of Victor Wembanyama and what he was doing on the offensive end of the floor. The Spurs won that game. The Nuggets, as we all know, did not get the 1 seed, which ultimately resulted in the Celtics winning the title. I think that if the Nuggets had been the 1 seed, they probably would have played Boston and things might have been a little different. But hey, that happened several months ago. You guys don't want to hear about that. Wemby's greatness, though, had an impact on who won the title last year. And I think that if he's great like that again, he's potentially going to win France the gold medal. He is more than capable of going crazy and being the best player on the floor tomorrow. That's his ceiling. Now, look, he's 19, so he doesn't always reach that ceiling. But if he does tomorrow, he will give France a legitimate opportunity to win that game. Defensively, he's going to have an impact. He's going to change the game defensively because of his size, his length, his quickness. Those things allow him to dominate the game on the defensive end of the floor. The question is, does he score enough? Does he do enough offensively to give France a chance? He's going to be aggressive. The dude's really competitive. He's not scared of the moment. And France is going to make him be aggressive because that's what they need him to do in order to have any sort of chance at winning that game. Okay? Now, something else that's going on this weekend, preseason games. Okay, we had some last night. I'm probably going to touch on those here in a bit. But the Colts play Sunday, 1 o'clock. Can't wait. Get up. Go to church. Right? Go get lunch with your family afterwards. And then go home, sit on the couch, and watch this Colts team play a little football. We do not know quite yet. We don't know quite yet what's going to happen with the, starters playing, how many reps are they going to get, how many drives are they going to play, all that kind of stuff. We don't know what that looks like quite yet. But I think that the starters are going to play because Anthony Richardson is in desperate need of reps against like legitimate competition. Okay. The Colts front office has done a horrendous job of bulking up this secondary. It's really bad. It looks like Justin Simmons is going to sign with the Saints. All the reports from yesterday kind of point to that, which is not good for the Colts because they need a guy like that. They need a legitimate free safety. They don't have that right now. And so, anyway, because there's a lack of competition in practice, Anthony Richardson should play at least 2 drives tomorrow. He needs the live reps. Okay, the fact that Bryce Young didn't play last night for the Panthers, I know he's a little banged up, is ridiculous. He should have played. Patrick Mahomes is going to play in the preseason. Okay, if Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, needs preseason reps, then I would argue that every quarterback in the NFL, except for maybe Aaron Rodgers because he's coming off the Achilles, every quarterback in the NFL needs preseason reps, especially a guy like Anthony Richardson, who threw 84 passes last year. And that's it. That's the number of passes he's thrown in his NFL career. Okay, he needs the reps tomorrow, so I think Shane Steichen is going to move. I think he's going to play the starters a little bit as soon as we know what he's going to do. If the news breaks during the show, trust me, I'm going to be all over that. Okay, the other thing that I really want to see tomorrow from the Colts, I hope the Colts give up multiple big plays in the passing game. I hope that the Broncos throw for 600 yards tomorrow. Okay, I hope Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham, let's be honest, the last quarterback drafted in the first round of this last year's NFL draft. Jarrett Stidham, a career backup. Zach Wilson's on that team as well. I hope those guys, all three, just dice this secondary up. I hope they throw the football all over the field tomorrow. Okay, because Ed Dodds, Colts assistant general manager, oh my gosh, had this insane quote where he was like, we haven't seen enough from the safeties yet to know whether or not we need to go get someone new. That's basically what he said. And so I'm hoping that 600 yards passing from average to below average Broncos quarterbacks is enough for them to be like, you know what, we should probably go out and get a real free safety. We should probably not play Nick Cross at free safety. We should probably not try and convert a linebacker to free safety. Maybe we should just go out and throw a whole bunch of money at Justin Simmons. That's what they should do. Will they do that? I don't know. I doubt it, to be honest. But that's what should happen. That's not what's going to happen, though. They're going to sit back. They're going to watch this preseason game. They're like, oh, we need to see more tape. That's such hooey. It's a load of crap. That's what it is. Okay, so Bo Nix, Sean Payton, Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham, all you guys. I need you guys to absolutely light up this Colts secondary tomorrow because the Colts are in desperate need of help in that secondary. And something drastic has to happen for this stupid front office to realize it. The other thing that I'm interested in, not as much about the Colts, but I am genuinely intrigued to see how Bo Nix looks. I thought that the Broncos reached on the pick, taking him 12th overall. But Sean Payton seems incredibly sold on him. Okay, Sean Payton thinks Bo Nix is going to be the best thing since sliced bread at quarterback. Okay, comparing him to all these different guys. Said he got the same feeling when he saw Bo Nix as the same feeling as when he saw Patrick Mahomes when he was with the Saints. Okay, so that's incredibly high praise. I have to be honest. I thought that Bo Nix at Oregon, I thought that it was a very quarterback-friendly offense. A lot of stuff that teams don't do in the NFL, like RPOs. Okay, it was a lot of stuff like that. I'm very intrigued to see how Bo Nix looks. We had Philip Lindsay on yesterday on Dan's show, which is not on today. So we had Philip Lindsay who does a show in Denver. He was talking a little bit about Bo Nix, and I'm very intrigued to see how he looks. So going to be interesting to see how that looks. There's a lot of controversy in New England about who the starting quarterback is going to be. Jacoby Brissett, Jalen Milroe looked awesome last night. We'll see. I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I did watch some of the preseason stuff last night. I'm going to touch on some of that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's via one of the live streams, maybe you're watching on Twitter. Follow me there at __ Jonathan Smith. Follow the station as well at Ticket 1430 for all the updates on my show and Dan's show. Dan is out today. No show from noon to 3 there. Or maybe you're watching on YouTube. The best way to watch, head over there, join the chat, subscribe to Indy's Sports Ticket, and join the conversation. Maybe you're listening on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download on your App Store or Google Play Store. You can stream my show there from 10 to noon, or you can stream the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3. Coming up, top of the hour, 20 minutes away, Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. He is set to join me. We're going to talk Team USA and Serbia's game yesterday. We're going to look ahead to the game against France. We're going to talk a little NFL preseason drama, all that fun stuff. And then 11:20, Fun List Friday. John Buzzard joins me for that. Cannot wait for that. I am super excited for the conversation that's going to come out of that. The topic that we're doing today is the 5 ways that we've consumed sports. Now, John is, I don't know how old he is. I just know he's a little bit older than I am, to say the least. So I think, the conversation there should be fun, should be interesting, just to kind of compare and contrast how different generations have watched and enjoyed and just kind of consumed sports in general. And I think that as the Olympics winds down, which I'm going to miss, okay, like I love that I can walk into the studio. We have TVs in here. I love that I can turn on the TV and I can watch the USA men's volleyball team just lay the smack down on Italy. It's great. I love that there's sports on all the time. So I am going to miss that, but it's okay because football is coming around the corner. Preseason stuff has started. Colts play on Sunday. We're going to hear from Shane Steichen today how much the starters are going to play, which hopefully, two drives. That's what I'm asking for, okay? Give Anthony Richardson as many live reps as you can without risking him getting hurt. Don't run him. I swear, if they call quarterback power at any point, I'm going to lose my stuff, okay? So last night, the Patriots played, and there's been a lot of, I don't want to call it a controversy, but the stories coming out of New England have been incredibly interesting to me because people are super excited about Joe Milton, and it makes sense, okay? Like, as a consumer, like when you sit back, it's very much kind of this Anthony Richardson effect of, oh, this dude's huge. He throws the ball a country mile, and he can move at his size. Like, it's pretty incredible. It really is, just the skills that Joe Milton has, just the physical traits. But I'm telling you right now, don't buy into it. I watched him at Tennessee. Inconsistent accuracy. I wouldn't buy into it. And the other part of that is they have Drake May, the 3rd overall pick in the draft. And when we look at New England, the situation's pretty dire. The offensive line is depleted. It's not very good. The receivers, their best receiver is going to be Jalen Polk, a 2nd-round pick this year out of Washington. Now, look, I like Jalen Polk. I think he's a good player, all that kind of stuff. But, if he's your best receiver, I don't think that you're doing too well. Okay, so when you look at New England, it would make sense for Joe Milton to kind of be the guy this year instead of Drake May. Okay, because Joe Milton, like the physical tools are kind of there that he can make up for a bad offensive line and a lack of good receivers, right? But long-term, Drake May's going to be the guy there, and if the Patriots move off of him, I'm going to be disappointed because that's the guy that I think could actually really kind of restore New England to prominence. But at the same time, drafting quarterbacks is hard. So if it is Joe Milton, then hey, whatever. We have more preseason games going on tonight that I honestly can't wait for, which I don't say very often about preseason games. I think it's very rare that we walk into the NFL preseason and they're like actual games that we're like kind of excited for. That's very, I think, out of the ordinary. So the Falcons play the Dolphins tonight, which is interesting. Okay, like, look, the Dolphins, who cares? We know what they're going to be. They're going to be super fast. They're going to score a ton of points. But as soon as it gets below, 40 degrees, Game over. They're not. That's it. They aren't going to win any games at that point. But Atlanta is going to be interesting. No Kirk Cousins tonight. We get to see Michael Penix Jr. And for the Atlanta Falcons organization's sake, I kind of hope he's bad. I do, because I think it's hard to draft a quarterback 8th overall. And this is part of why I took some issue with the Falcons taking Michael Penix. When you take a quarterback 8th overall, if they show any flashes that they could be good at any point during the season, as soon as Kirk Cousins has any sort of struggle whatsoever, and he could have some struggles because he's Kirk Cousins and he's a little older and he's coming off of an Achilles tear. As soon as he shows any signs of, I don't know if he's very good. He looks a little rough today. Let's go to Michael Penix. Like, as soon as it happens, if the Falcons lose 2 games in a row, you're going to get on Twitter and you're going to see Falcons people like, we need Michael Penix if he's good during the preseason. And something tells me that he's going to be, because Michael Penix can absolutely rip the football. Okay, he was great at Washington, and a lot of the stuff that they run there, it's a little bit more pro-styled, translates to the NFL. Okay, and I'm excited to see how he looks tonight. So that should be fun. But I think the real game that I'm going to be tuned into also starts at 7. The Texans and the Steelers. 2 matchups that are, one is, it's kind of important for Colts fans. Like, I want to see what the Texans look like. How deep are they? Do CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs and those guys play? How does that first team really look for Houston? But let's be honest. I think the entire NFL world wants to see what Pittsburgh does at that quarterback spot. Okay, because Justin Fields, young, cool, dynamic with his legs. A lot of attention is going to go to that. And then you've got Russell Wilson, old. He was so bad that the Broncos were like, Pittsburgh, if you'll take him, we'll pay his salary. That's how bad Russell Wilson was these last 2 years in Denver. Even though he wasn't terrible last year. I thought Sean Payton did a really good job with him. But let's be honest, he's not the Russell Wilson that was in Seattle throwing, 50-yard dimes and winning a Super Bowl and making it to another. Like, that's not the Russell Wilson that we have anymore. We got this other guy that's a little older that doesn't understand that he's older. And so there's this really interesting push and pull coming into camp. Mike Tomlin was like, it's not really a quarterback competition. Russell Wilson is our guy. And then Russell Wilson gets hurt. And now it's like, I guess we're going to go with good old Justin Fields until Russell Wilson comes back. And then Justin Fields starts taking reps with the ones, and he looks awesome. Like every time I get on Twitter, there's a video of him throwing a touchdown pass and Pittsburgh fans being really excited about him. And the most interesting thing I think about this quarterback battle is likability. Russell Wilson, people don't like him. They don't, man. Like, if you've ever heard Richard Sherman post Seattle talk about Russell Wilson, it's very clear that he doesn't like him. Okay, if you've heard any of Russell Wilson's teammates discuss Russell Wilson, they don't like him. Okay, he's a little weird. All right, like, his friends, that's not the right term. His teammates would reach out to him, try to get him to come out and hang out, and like they couldn't contact Russell Wilson directly, which is really weird. He'd be like, you got to talk to my people first, which is weird and awkward. And that doesn't exactly spell inviting. That doesn't exactly spell team leader. That doesn't, that's not good. That's not the kind of guy that, your teammates are going to gravitate towards, which is important. When he went to Denver, he didn't have a locker. He had his own office, which is nuts. He just kind of alienated himself from everyone else, which is not normal behavior. Okay, like if you go into locker rooms, you're going to see quarterbacks with lockers, not their own office on the same level as all the other coaches, because that's what Russell Wilson had in Denver. That is out of the ordinary. That is not a normal thing at all. And then you've got Justin Fields, who people love because he runs really well, which is interesting to me. I don't understand why you would want the quarterback of your franchise to be a better runner of the football than he is a thrower of the football. I would say that that's a really concerning thing. But hey, people like what they like, I guess. And the interesting thing about Justin Fields is he wasn't very good in Chicago at all. He wasn't good. Okay, they didn't win a ton of games. They went 7-10 last year. Okay, Tyson Bagent won games. Like it was a really weird year. And despite Justin Fields really struggling ever since he was drafted by Chicago and ever since he started taking reps for Chicago, people in that city love him. And part of that is because, let's be honest, the Bears have never had a good quarterback at all. That's why they're super amped up for Caleb Williams. But even the guys in the locker room really vouched for him. It was clear that those guys liked him. And having your locker room buy into whoever your starting quarterback is highly important. Okay, just like how in the NBA, like if the locker room doesn't like your star player, things can get kind of testy and it's not fun. It's not. And so I look at the Steelers and look, there's a lot of like guys on that team, right? Like when you think of the Steelers, the personality of that team, of that brand as a whole, is we're tough, we're physical. Okay, we put our hand in the dirt and we're tough. And Russell Wilson doesn't exactly exude those qualities, whereas I would argue that Justin Fields does. And all of the reports coming out of that Pittsburgh Steelers camp is that players like Justin Fields. They do. Okay, people like that he's tough and that he's a little more athletic. Okay, like guys like him. Whereas that's not what we're hearing about Russell Wilson. And we haven't heard that about him. Like throughout his entire career, even going back to college, he was the starting quarterback at NC State as a sophomore. And NC State had a pretty good year by North Carolina State standards. And the head coach approaches Russell Wilson. He's like, hey, man, like, you should probably get out of here. His starting quarterback, that's how tough of a hang Russell Wilson is. And so he transfers to Wisconsin. He plays for Brett Bielema. Wisconsin ends up being, pretty good while he's there, right? And then he ends up in Seattle, and we kind of see the same thing where his teammates aren't exactly his biggest fans. And so that quarterback competition in Pittsburgh is fascinating to me. I'm intrigued to see how they split the reps. I hope Justin Fields plays tonight. I want to see how he looks because all these Justin Fields people keep telling me that there was a weapons issue in Chicago, which is partially true. But I just saw Patrick Mahomes win a Super Bowl where his best receiver was his 35-year-old tight end, and his second best receiver was a rookie receiver in Rashee Rice, and then his third best receiver changed every week. So, great quarterbacks, it doesn't really matter who their receivers are, okay? Like, I saw Tom Brady win Super Bowls with Julian Edelman as his best receiver, all right? So, I want to see how Justin Fields looks tonight. Super intrigued by that. Coming up, next segment, 11 o'clock sharp, Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. He is set to join me. We're going to talk a little NFL. He covers basketball as well, so we're going to talk Team USA, their win yesterday over Serbia. I can't wait. Cannot wait for tomorrow's game against France, 3:30. The hostile environment. Super excited to talk to Jared Dubin about that. And then following that, 11:20, listener of the program, friend of the program, John Buzzard. He joins me. He won the over-under bets on my combine stuff. There's a video out there somewhere if you want to go find it. You can watch me bench 245. Hey, let's go. He won that, so he's going to join me. We're going to do Fun List Friday. For our list, we're doing the top 5 ways that we've consumed sports. John's a little bit older than I am, so he has just consumed sports differently than I have. And so I think it's going to lead to what is hopefully an interesting conversation, right? Because anytime you talk about different generations and how they view things, I always find it fascinating. I hope you guys will enjoy it as well. Jared Dubin of CBS Sports, he is set to join me coming up here in about 5 minutes. Should be a great conversation. Stick around for it. This is Jonathan Smith on Indy's Sports Ticket.
The Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council present the story of Cynthia and Ed.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, out of the blue, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn or just stay at the stop sign. She wasn't even really sure where she was at. She was very concerned. It was very unsettling for her.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it, to bring the family in on it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a great Friday. Joining me now, as promised, Jared Dubin of CBS Sports, covers the NFL, covers some basketball as well. Jared, what's going on, man?
Not too much. How about you?
Man, I'm doing pretty well today. I'm glad it's Friday. We've got a great basketball game lined up for tomorrow. Preseason football is going on, so I'm doing pretty great.
Yeah, I mean the basketball tournament. Hoping we get some more good games. That'd be nice. And preseason football. Technically, you could qualify it as football, but hopefully we get to the real games soon enough.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to talk a little preseason stuff at the end, but I want to start with USA and Serbia. Just an incredible game yesterday. What were your just overall thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's nice to finally talk about what happened in the game rather than who did or didn't play in a specific game, which is basically the only conversation that's been happening around Team USA for the entire tournament. Like, it's much better to talk about like how KD was playing in the earlier games, or, the absolute explosion that we got from Steph yesterday, or, LeBron going over late in the game and guarding Jokic, and just generally what he's been doing throughout the entire tournament. Like, that stuff is just way more interesting to me than like, oh my God, Jason Tatum didn't play, or Tyrese Halliburton didn't play, or there was one game where Joel Embiid didn't play. Like, USA has not lost yet. Like, why do we care who does or doesn't play in a specific game? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, because it's the NBA and we care more about the actual people than the actual team. That's just kind of the culture of the NBA. But I'm with you. I will say though, I am disappointed that Halliburton hadn't played just being in Indy. I think he'd really help this team. But when LeBron's playing point guard and your other point guard is Steph Curry, like I'm not gonna really complain about it, you know?
Right. Yeah. Like it would be one thing if they were losing and like needed an extra dose of playmaking essentially. And that's just not what's happening. Like clearly everybody on the team can help them. Like they wouldn't be in the NBA and certainly not on Team USA if they couldn't help. There's like somebody was going to be the odd man out or the odd men out no matter what. And it was going to seem ridiculous no matter what, because these guys are all, all-star level players or better,
Yeah.
and it's disappointing to me that that's been the conversation for most of the tournament.
Yeah, but that's just kind of the way it goes. I do want to focus on yesterday's outcome though. I think that Twitter is as terrible as a place as it can be sometimes. I think it's done just actually surprisingly a pretty good job of summing up LeBron James and how great he was yesterday and how amazing Steph was. But the Kevin Durant stuff, kind of between those three, because for me, like I'm 24. Those are kind of the three best players of my generation, and it's been really fun to watch them play. But I think that the misfit of those three is Kevin Durant. So what are kind of your thoughts on him and how he's kind of performed, not even just in the Olympics, but throughout his career in general?
First of all, thanks for making me feel incredibly old by telling me that you're 24.
Sorry, man.
I really super appreciate that. That's a nice thing to get in the middle of the day today. But look, Kevin Durant as an actual basketball player, like I said this a few years ago, he's one of I'm 37, so I didn't see necessarily that much of Magic Johnson's prime or Larry Bird's prime. By the time I was like really watching basketball, like Magic had retired and then come back, and Larry Bird was dealing with back injuries and whatnot. For me, Kevin Durant is one of like the 3 or 4 best actual basketball players that I've ever seen. And there are people who, for one reason or another, have had better or more decorated careers than he has. Specifically in the NBA. Obviously, what he's done internationally is pretty incredible, also. But just like as an actual basketball player, the dude is absolutely unbelievable and essentially unstoppable, and has been for going on 17, 18 years at this point. And there's nothing on the court that he can't do. Like, he's an elite shooter. He's an elite individual creator. When he decides that he wants to be, or when his team asks him to be, he has been an elite defender in multiple different ways, guarding on the perimeter, and more recently serving as a rim protector and help defender. Like, he's just incredible. And I understand to a certain degree why people get turned off by him, because of the way his career has played out and because he just dunks on people on Twitter all the time.
He did this morning at 5
I think
a.m.
people tend to let it cloud what they think of him as a player.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Joined by Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. And I was talking about Kevin Durant earlier, and when you were talking about just his skill set, I think that if you took someone who didn't know anything about basketball and you lined up the 15 best players ever, I think that the person who didn't know anything about resume or anything, I think they would take Kevin Durant, because like you said, like defensively, he's capable of being your best defender. Offensively, he's so unique. And I think that the thing that really makes him unique is because of his vast skill set, kind of like what you were talking about, is I think he could fit on any team in any era. Like, he can play on the ball, he can play off the ball. Defensively, he can guard just about anyone. And I think we're really seeing that with Team USA, because, like, he was pretty quiet yesterday. I think he only took like one shot in the first half, and then he scored 7 of his 9 points in the fourth quarter when they really needed him to score. He's been just fascinating to watch. And I'm intrigued to see what they do with him against France. Like, do they put him on Wemby? Because that's another just walking mismatch. How do you think Team USA stacks up against France?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to consider USA the favorites. If there's anybody that could like single-handedly beat a team by himself at this point, it might be Wemby. Jokic obviously almost did it yesterday, not necessarily by himself. Like, Bogdanovic was unbelievable too. But yeah, I mean, you could, again, like you said, you can ask KD to do pretty much anything that you need from him in that game. And a lot of people have said this. He's probably the most malleable superstar of all time. Like, you can drop him onto any team, any style of play, and he is going to make sense because of the combination of size and skill. Like, there's nobody that you could put on a team with him where it like would be a bad fit. That just doesn't really exist. And when you have a player like that on a team, obviously stocked with other superstar kind of players, like, you can put him onto the court in any lineup, and that lineup will make sense because of his presence.
Yeah, without a doubt. And he's my second favorite player ever, probably. So I love to talk about him, but I want to shift a little bit to the other two guys and Steph and LeBron. What have your thoughts just been on LeBron, 39, probably been the best player on this team? Like, how just insane is that?
It makes no sense really on any level. Like, he has broken, I think, a lot of people's brains and perception of what aging in basketball is supposed to look like, because he's still, like you said, at 39 years old, 40 years old going on, like, one of the, I don't know, 10, 15 best players in the league on a regular basis, and in the context of a specific game can still be better than anybody in the world. And that just should not be physically possible for a person that age. Like, look at his contemporaries that have been out of the league for several years. Dwayne Wade's in the Hall of Fame already. He's been out for 5 years. Carmelo Anthony, when he was like 34, people were like, oh my God, like what's going on? Like, why can't Melo get a job in the league? Like, because when you're 34, generally your career is pretty much winding down, if not already over. That's how it was for years until we saw this guy do what he's doing. And the fact that he's still able to do it, not just in the NBA, but also in the Olympics, in the context of, like, everybody on that team is an all-star or a superstar caliber player, and he's still doing that and looks better than all of them. It's just, it's like, I don't even have any words to describe it.
Joined by Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. Last thing here on basketball, and then we can kind of move into the football part of this. Finish this sentence for me. The United States lost to France because
Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah. So for the people who haven't seen a ton of Wemby, because let's be honest, like, the Spurs were terrible last year. They won 21 games. Because of that, I feel like people didn't get to see how great he was at the end of the year. What can people kind of expect from him tomorrow?
Honestly, like, anything you think is possible on a basketball court is potentially possible with him. Like, he is 7'4" and an elite shooter, an elite individual creator, and he's going to be the best defensive player in the league for as long as he's healthy, essentially, over the next 15, 20, however many years. Like, there are still going to be issues, obviously, because he's very skinny. He's still very young. I think he's 20 now. Like, but there is nothing on a court that he cannot do. And with his combination of size and length, he's 7'4". His wingspan, obviously, is like, I believe it's like over 8 feet, if I'm remembering correctly. And, his stand, like, he can touch the rim just standing there and putting his arm up. I guess I would say anything you think is possible on a court actually is possible with him.
I keep having flashbacks, just thinking about the game. It's a game 81 where he scored 17 points in 3 minutes against Denver. And I'm just like, if that happens tomorrow, then the United States is going to be in a load of trouble, because France has, I would argue, probably a better supporting cast around him than what Serbia did around Jokic. So that whole thing is going to be really intriguing. I'm ready. Once again, that game tips off tomorrow at 3:30. So I want to transition to the NFL now. If you were the Colts, how would you go about dividing up time for Anthony Richardson to play versus resting him so he doesn't get hurt in a preseason game?
I generally tend to err on the side of, I don't really want any of my starters out there during the preseason, because there's nothing good that can happen when you're out there. I understand the idea of, especially for a guy who was hurt and missed most of last year, wanting to get him some live reps. And, I can see it from that sense, but just like as a matter of personal preference, like if I was the head coach of a team, I'd be like, all right, we're playing our second and third stringers and that's it. And even some of the more important second stringers, I would try not to play. But, obviously I understand because he didn't have much starting experience in college. I think he only started like 11, 12, 13 games, something along those lines. And obviously only 4 games that he appeared in last year. And if you look at snap wise, it's really like 2.5 or 3. And it's been since October of last year since he actually played. So I get it from that sense, but I would just be very, very careful.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I want to see him play probably 2 possessions tomorrow, and then that's kind of really it. Because like you said, like more bad can happen than good. But at the same time, like I don't know, like the Chiefs are going to play Mahomes, and there's a part of me that's like, if Andy Reid, who I think is the best coach in the NFL, feels like Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, needs to play a little bit, then shouldn't everybody kind of need to play a little bit?
Yeah, Andy Reid, as good as he is as a coach, he's not infallible. He also thinks it's a
Yeah.
good idea to give Kadarius Toney like carries and short yardage that never work out. Like everybody has their faults. Sean McVay, other unbelievable coach. He doesn't play as starters in the preseason, and I tend to agree with that. But he also like refuses to go for it on any fourth downs and things like that. Like everybody has their faults. Obviously, Andy Reid, there's very little you can question about what he's done throughout his career, and especially in recent years. So I understand it from that perspective. But it's not like you just say Andy Reid does this and therefore it's correct. Like Bill Belichick doesn't have a job right now, despite being the best coach maybe ever, because some of the things that he was doing in recent years weren't as smart as the things he did earlier in his career.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Last question for you. Once again, joined by Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. You can see everything that he writes at cbssports.com. You've got your own website as well where you cover basketball, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the name of that? I don't have it written down.
That's
Sorry.
called lastnightinbasketball.com.
Lastnightinbasketball.com. There you go. So last question for you. I know, look, preseason football, not the most exciting thing ever. But if there was a team that you were interested in seeing kind of play, for me, it's Pittsburgh. I want to see how they deal with the quarterback stuff. Which team are you most intrigued by? Which team are you most interested in seeing for the preseason?
I think it's just generally like whenever any of the rookie quarterbacks are on the field, it's not necessarily one specific team. Like I just want to see what those guys look like, especially if the other team plays any of its defensive starters at all. That to me is the most interesting thing. Just getting a look at like how comfortable are they if they're going to take snaps under center? How comfortable are they, going through even minor progressions in terms of like there are some college quarterbacks where it's like a lot of the offense is just half field reads, or if you see a safety in a certain spot, this is where you're going with the ball. That's not really what you see for the most part in the NFL. So little things like that, but everything is so vanilla in the preseason that it's more about do they look comfortable than how do they perform. And that's just sort of the way it is at this point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Jared, thanks for your time. You were great as always, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Hey, man, you too. That is Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. He covers the NFL, writes his own basketball stuff on lastnightinbasketball.com. Make sure you go check all that out. 4 minutes away, friend of the program, John Buzzard, joins me to do a little fun list Friday. That's coming your way here in 4 minutes.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Joined by listener John Buzzard. He won our, competition. I guess what we'll call it. I had to do this NFL combine thing, and I said over-unders, and he got everyone right.
I bet on the old man's strength.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Your quickness fades and your bench press and everything else goes up.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. I remember, that was a blast. There's a video out there if you really want to watch it. I don't know why you would want to watch it, but because it's a bunch of these washed up former athletes that think that they still got it, which is kind of funny, but I wouldn't watch it, but hey, whatever. But we're doing Funless Friday, something we do every Friday, just a different sort of list. It's supposed to be different. It's not like the 10 best athletes ever or anything like that. It's supposed to be a little more unique. So John, he just throws lists my way all the time, which I appreciate. It makes my life so much easier. And you had a great idea. I'll let you kind of set it up if you want, kind of what your idea was.
Well, I have random thoughts all the time, so you get the brunt of my random thoughts in the YouTube chat or whatever. But when I started listening to your show, you're such an old soul.
Thank you.
So as far as, which is definitely a compliment. So the amount of knowledge, you talk like you grew up through the 70s and 80s as far as your knowledge content. So I was wondering how you consumed media when you were a kid, like what you got excited for, consume sports. I mean, so what'd you get excited for? How did you consume sports? What got you pumped up when you saw something in sports, and what method did you see it through?
Yeah. So I did 5 ways.
Got it.
You did 5 ways? Okay,
yep,
that's perfect.
5 top ways.
So I kind of worked progressionally from when I was like a little kid all the way up until kind of now. So when I was little, Sports Center before school.
Right.
Like you'd wake up early. Like my parents had no issues getting me out of bed.
Right.
Like I'm getting up, I'm grabbing, some Honey Nut Cheerios or whatever. I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching, the old school Sports Center with the little ticker on the side.
Right.
I'm like reading all the stories. And I remember you're sitting there and I'm watching, and there's like a story that I'd want to see about, the Dolphins or whatever, because that was my favorite team growing up. And just being like, how long until we leave? Are we going to get to that story? Because I really want to see that. Can I stall? Like I'm cool with being a little late if I can see this story. So I think growing up, that was the main way. And then also like sports talk on the way to school.
Right. Well, and that was when it was funny. You had like Stuart Scott and you had like Cooler on the other side of the pillow.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. So back when they had those original jokes, and it was really, really good back then.
It was peak ESPN. That's really what it was. And it's obviously changed a lot since then, but that was the big thing for me kind of growing up. What about you? What's the first one?
I would say the top thing was Thursday. So Sports Illustrated magazines.
Okay.
So you watch sports through the week. They obviously had to write about it, print it, mail it, all that kind of stuff. So it was a little delayed. So it was kind of intense, not intense in a bad way, intense in a good way of you didn't know who was going to be on the cover. You hope they covered your team. I grew up basically through the 80s and early 90s. So it was like Michael Jordan, like every other cover, whatever. But that's how you got your bracket. That's how you got like everything that you filled out. So I lived out in the country. So I had a long bus ride to get home. Okay. So get off in the bus and run out to the mailbox, see who's on the cover, see what Bill Simmons used to write on the back page. He always had some good content on there, but it was that magazine. And then you just collected them. So you could go back and then read and kind of see what was going on last year. So it was kind of like your encyclopedia of sports a little bit as you collected them and looked through them.
Do you still have them?
No, not anymore.
All right,
I got rid of them. And that was as one of those things like with baseball cards, like if your mom throws them out or whatever, like, oh no, don't do that. But I just got tired of moving them from when I was in apartments, when I was in my 20s and stuff. I was like, I'm not moving this box again.
Okay.
So I got rid of them. But yeah, Sports Illustrated and magazines overall was the number one thing I got excited for.
Okay. For me, after kind of Sports Center, ESPN.com ended up becoming a big thing. Just being able to and with ESPN.com, I'd say like Basketball Reference, Football Reference, and those sites, just being able to like log in and see the stats, because like you said, like even with the old school Sports Center, they didn't cover every team. They covered, the 4 biggest stories of the day.
Right. Playing the hits.
Yeah. And so like, growing up for me, like Miami wasn't very good. The Mavericks were kind of up and down. And so being able to log on to ESPN.com or even just the app now and like go see the score, they would use, they had beat reporters for every team. So you could go and you could read them. And so I think that was kind of the next phase of it for me when I was growing up, was like actively like going online and like trying to find it.
Right. I'm going to go backwards a little bit.
Okay.
So it was baseball cards, cards and overall stuff like that. So that was our like way to basically like argue who's the best player.
Okay.
So you could go right to the back. So instead of going online and you Google and say, hey, who had the best batting average or whatever, and say, see, I told you so. This person's better. They had a better average. You had to go to the baseball card. And then you also, in the 80s, there was so many baseball cards. So it got saturated the market. So they weren't really as valuable back then. So when you traded them, you almost traded and you pled your case for who I think the better person is. And then you traded. So for me, as a Cubs fan, it was always Andre Dawson, Mark Grace, Sean Dunston. That's who I tried to collect and I tried to get. It may have been somebody may have like gotten a better card out of me, worth more value. Passed up on a Michael Jordan rookie card at the county fair in Huntington, Indiana, which was horrible because I was hungry and I needed a hot dog and a shake. So I passed up on that. But anyway, that was how you argued as a kid who was a better player. And then you flipped over and said, see, I told you so. Here's their highlights of their career.
Okay, that makes sense. Baseball cards, like when I was like late elementary school, is kind of when they started to fade. And so like I had a bunch, like I probably had like three or 400 at a time. No idea where they're at now. They're probably in a box in my parents' house somewhere. But yeah, they're a big deal now though. Like people trade them and they flip them for money, and it's really kind of changed from what they used to be for when you were a kid. Once again, joined by John Buzzard. He won a little competition we had, so we're doing our Fun List Friday, the 5 ways that we've consumed sports growing up. The third on my list, it's a little more current. I would say social media and YouTube.
Yeah.
Like that's why like I hate talking to people about basketball, because that's like the NBA community. That's how they kind of consume it. It's here's, the 8-minute highlights on YouTube. Here's this really cool dunk that John Moran had the other night.
Yep.
That is, I think it's really kind of watered down sports a little bit in terms of just the conversation around it, because instead of like sitting down and actually having to watch everything that happens, you just catch the highlights of it.
Right. Right. And I'll go a little bit opposite as far as on mine. It's how TV was obviously, I'm not, Amish or whatever. I had like actual TV. I'm not that old. So TV was a little bit different back then on how you consume it. You watch the entire game. So there wasn't sports clips, anything like that. But we basically I grew up in the Fort Wayne TV market in Huntington County. So we had, amazingly enough, we had the WGN feed. So we had the Cubs game, and that was back when you could turn your TV on to any of the major networks and they actually picked it up. You didn't have to find it on an app or hope that Bally's is carried on your streaming network or anything like that. So WGN really sold the Cubs. So I had a routine in the summer. So I was watching Love Connection on the Fox affiliate.
Okay.
And then the Andy Griffith Show. And then Cubs baseball at that time was only played during the day. So during the summer, your parents are off at work, you're, at the house, you're trying to figure out something to do besides playing wiffle ball with your little brother. You watch the Cubs. So you hear a maybe drunk Harry Carey and a Steve Stone, and you sit and you consume the whole entire game. And then if you walk away and you're like, you hope they catch the replay of the home run or whatever, because you're not going to see it on a highlight ever again.
Okay.
So just way different.
WGN was influential for me because, I'm just weird, Dolphins fan in Miami, Mavericks fan in Dallas, Cubs fan. Because like growing up for me, we would like the Sunday tradition was always the same. Wake up, go to church, come home. During the fall, we're watching football. If it's not the fall, baseball's happening.
Right.
And so we would turn on the Cubs and we'd watch them lose 100 games every year.
Right.
And, I remember just falling in love with Derek Lee and Ramos Ramirez. And that's not, now it's the Marquee Network. And like you said, you have to hope that your streaming service has it. And so it's really changed, which stinks because I think everyone should be a Cubs fan.
That was a heartbreaking time during the Cubs too, with Derek Lee and all those guys. And then you had the Pryor Wood, all those guys.
It was
I blame Dusty Baker, but that's a different story.
That very much so, yeah. So speaking of streaming services, that's actually my fourth one, but not like YouTube TV. Like Netflix now is like buying football games, and like you watch Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. And could you even fathom that idea? Like like when you were growing up, could you even
No.
imagine that even being a thing?
No, I mean, there was no smartphones, there was no anything like that. So streaming internet, it was just it wasn't invented yet. So there's no way. We were just lucky if we could actually tune in 4 to 5 channels living out in the country with our giant antenna on our fireplace.
Okay. Giant antenna, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like not I'm trying to picture it, and I just picture these like old movies that are probably blown way out of proportion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so yeah, I can't even
Big
imagine that.
antennas and giant satellite dishes. So you had this metal satellite dish out there when that came out. So
Jeez. Okay, what's fourth on your list?
fourth would be posters.
Mm.
So posters were big, and I mean, you're not like it's not the same as TV whatsoever, but that was kind of you surrounded yourself with your idols and your teams and all that kind of stuff. So the biggest ones were like the Michael Jordan's Wings poster, where he's got his arms out and he talks about no bird soars as high as whatever.
Okay.
The Bo Jackson football pads, because that was real big. So when he's a multi-sport athlete. So yeah, you put those posters up on your wall, and that's your guy, and that's who you kind of want to watch, and that's who you try to emulate.
Yeah, once again, joined by John Buzzard, going through our Fun List Friday, the 5 ways that we've consumed sports. The poster thing is really interesting because I think there's still an element of that, except we don't put them on posters. They're the screensaver on your phone.
Right.
And because like I remember growing up, like we would screenshot things on computers and then whittle them down and then email them to ourselves.
Right.
That way that they could be like our phone
Right.
screensaver. And so like there's still an element of that. It's just incredibly different than what it used to be.
Right. So you did not have actual posters, or when did you get rid of them, or when did you have them?
I had
guess?
one. Then again, like, you know, we didn't just growing up, we didn't have just like a ton of money to like go buy stuff like that. So I had one poster. It was of Dirk doing his patented fadeaway.
Right.
It had like his number, and I think it had like all-star appearances on it and stuff like that.
Right.
And then my brother, who's a huge Colts fan, which is great because he listens to my show because of that, but it's not great because he's like, "Can you get me tickets?" And I'm like, "I don't know who you think I am," but you know, he had a Peyton Manning poster.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and my mom, you know, being the great mom that she is, she wouldn't just let us like pin him to the wall. We had to like buy really nice cases for him.
Right.
And, you know, which is cool. That it's somewhere. Like we've got it somewhere still. But yeah, that's the only one I ever had. I always wanted more like Fat Heads. I don't remember that.
That was,
company.
yeah, that was big.
Yeah, they were really big, and I'd see their commercials all the time. I'd be like, "Mom, like, can I?" She's like, "No,
Yeah,
Jonathan."
it's just
no.
those were out of the price range. So you could go to a store like there was Spencer's at the mall, there was stuff like that where you could actually, you know, you would like scroll through them or whatever. So I know I'm doing hand motions and I'm on the radio.
No, it's all good.
But you could scroll through them, you could get them for a couple bucks. It wasn't like a Fat Head was like $100.
Well, they were huge too. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I remember Fat Heads was always something I thought was really cool. My mom was like, "Jonathan, we are not putting a life-sized image of fill in the blank."
Yeah. I was just happy my parents were cool enough that they let me put tacks in all my walls so I could tack them all up and they didn't get mad. So I had some friends that couldn't put them up because of that. So
man, that'd be so disappointing.
Right.
Jeez. And then for me, the fifth one, you mentioned Bill Simmons earlier because he would write on the back of Sports Illustrated.
Yep.
And that is, I think, really kind of the essence of this list, the way that things have changed. Podcasting is on here, is on my list. Like when I drive in the mornings, sometimes it's a podcast, sometimes it's, you know, talk, some sort of talk radio. And the fact that you're talking about reading Bill Simmons as a kid is like his writing, which I got some of that. But like most of my experiences with him have been in the car where he's doing some sort of podcast, which I think has really kind of changed the way that people in general consume sports now.
Yeah. His book of basketball. Have you ever read that before? It's huge, but it's really good.
I have not read it. I almost bought it about a month ago. I ended up buying the Jordan Rules instead. But he's got a book of basketball 2.0. It's his book, but it's not a book. It's in podcast form.
Yeah.
So all the stuff that he would have written down, he just said. So I've listened to that. It's a little more current, but yeah, I've seen it. It came out in 2009, I think, and I almost bought it the other day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of reading, but it's almost like an encyclopedia because it walks through the decades and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really good. He had with Jalen Rose. Their NBA preview was absolutely amazing. Okay. And then before kind of ESPN went downhill a little bit, but that show was awesome.
Yeah, he's just really talented in his own right.
Right.
So I want to go back to the posters really quick.
Yep.
Favorite one that you had, what was it?
Probably Michael Jordan Wings. by far, because it was a different style. It wasn't like a rectangular up and down. It was super broad. So kind of like on your phone when you take the what do you call the plane?
The panoramic.
Yeah, it was a panoramic deal. And it was just really cool. It showed how long his arms were. It was inspirational, and it could go all the way across, the top of and then you put all the other posters below it. But that
Okay.
was by far my favorite.
Okay, that's sick. That sounds cool. I'm gonna have to go find that now because that's the thing. Like,
My son's got it in his room, so I bought the
Oh,
same
that's awesome.
thing. So I'll send you a picture of it. But it's super cool.
that's incredible. I
He's
like.
palming a basketball with one hand.
Okay, so it's not
So-
the one where he's got them in both hands. Maybe that's a LeBron photo. That might
That
be a
is
LeBron
LeBron,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I've always liked posters. I'm married now, so I can't just throw random stuff up on my walls. But my wife keeps telling me, she's like, one day, Jonathan, we'll get you like your
You
own
get
room,
a
and you can
designated
do that."
area. That's your right as a man. You get a designated area of your apartment or house that you can decorate, and that's yours.
So our apartment, it's pretty small right now, which is fine. Like it's just us two. It doesn't have to be huge. So I've got like a little corner. It's
Right.
really funny. Like if you walk into our living room, we've got like a big TV that like you can sit down and watch. And if you look to the
Right.
left of it, there's a small TV in the corner, and that's where like I play Xbox and stuff. That's like the only
Yeah.
spot that like my reading chair's in that corner. Everything
Yeah.
is just like piled up there,
Yeah.
which is fine. I don't need much. What's the last one on your list?
There's like an A and a B, but like there's the Wheaties box, so like cereal boxes.
Okay.
So there's a few other things the Wheaties box you had Walter Payton, you had Michael Jordan, you had Mary Lou Retton, but that was kind of if you made it, that was the top person in sports. That was the most, as far as their Q rating or whatever is the highest.
Okay.
So that was big. And then there was also, you could get like Post had baseball cards. But it was funny because they were generic. So it was like Wade Boggs, but he had like a black hat. It wouldn't be like Red Sox or whatever.
Okay.
But it was through cereal boxes. And I guess that's more through advertising is how you kind of consumed it back then. My B portion of the program was video games. I couldn't pick between those. So you had like Tecmo
Yeah.
Bowl, Mike Tyson's Punch Out. You had the first initial. So in mid to late 80s, that was the Nintendo that came out.
Okay.
So you went from the Atari, where you had like just really lame games, to the Nintendo, where, oh my gosh, this is Tecmo Bowl. This is amazing. So
Okay.
you had a huge jump, and then you could kind of play with more generic stuff because licensing wasn't figured out. So it was number 56 for the Giants. You just had to know that was LT
Yeah.
because they couldn't like say who it
I
was.
love that you said LT because
Right.
people my age would be like, LaDainian Tomlinson wore
Yeah.
number 21. What are you talking about? But you're
Well, I mean,
Lawrence Taylor. Yeah.
no, I was wrong. They had their names, but they didn't have there was some combination where it was kind of bland or whatever. So they couldn't put the names with the players or something. But yeah, you had to memorize numbers and who it was and flip through it so you didn't get somebody crappy as your defender.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Joined by John Buzzard. I had an honorable mention, and since you threw out a B, I'm going to throw this one in here. Fantasy football.
Yeah.
Because like that is something that, like even now, like I'll talk to random people or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, Anthony Richardson, he's like the
Right.
third ranked fantasy quarterback. That means he's like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm like,
Right.
no, that is not what that
Right.
means. And so I definitely think that has become a more popular way that people kind of consume sports and even just gambling in general. Like I know that's kind of impacted my view on things of like, oh,
Right.
they're favored by, this much or whatever. So I definitely think those two things belong on these lists as well.
Right.
One more time, really quickly, joined by John Buzzard, run through the 5 ways that you've consumed sports. And if there's one that you still wish was like around, if you want to highlight that one as well.
It was TV, magazines, cereal boxes, posters, and then I had like video games or whatever. I had print media on there too, but those were the one that I still wish that it was around is selfishly, I wish TV was more accessible with like your team. Like as far as you can, like, I wish the blackout thing wasn't so prevalent. So if I wanted to tune in and just watch WGN and just watch a network, I wouldn't have to think of, okay, is it on Bally's or is this on Marquee? Is this carried by whomever? I wish it wasn't so regionalized to where I could just flip it on and it was more accessible and easier to understand.
Yeah, blackouts are the worst.
Yeah.
That's the most, like, even like the Pacers were playing playoff games and they put them on NBA TV
Yeah.
and they blacked them out in Indianapolis.
Yes.
Like stuff like that. I'm with you. Highly, highly frustrating. But yeah, my list is too current to answer that last question of which one would I I keep a wrap up my 5. We're on Sports Center and before school in the morning, and sports talk radio, which is still pretty prevalent. I'd like to think ESPN.com, being able to
Right.
just log in and see stats and stuff, basketball reference, kind of all that stuff.
Right.
Social media / YouTube. That's how a lot of people watch stuff now. Streaming services, so like games on Netflix, Amazon, and then of course podcasts as well. So those are the lists, John. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, you're welcome.
Which I
Thank you.
appreciate. This was a blast.
It was fun.
I thought it was fascinating just because things are different. When you brought up Bill Simmons, I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Younger Bill Simmons.
I'm sure he was wild back then. I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
he wrote crazy things.
That was very good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. You got it. That is John Buzzard coming in after winning or predicting how unathletic I am. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Team USA barely escaped Serbia yesterday, playing France tomorrow. I'm getting into all that here in about 4 minutes. This is the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks to John Buzzard joining me, doing Funless Friday with me, doing the 5 ways that we consume sports growing up. John did a great job of just explaining what it was like to consume sports as a kid in the 80s and 90s. Pretty great conversation. You'll be able to listen to that when the podcast comes out after the show. I was going to talk a little bit of Serbia, Team USA, France, Team USA, but news has been broken. Shane Steichen has announced that starters will play on Sunday against the Broncos, including quarterback Anthony Richardson. That report coming in from James Boyd. I believe he works for The Athletic. That sounds right. So Shane Steichen made the right decision. Well, what I would say is the right decision, unless Anthony Richardson gets hurt. If he gets hurt, I will flip my opinion and be like, that was a terrible decision that he just made. So I'm glad. I think this is what needs to happen. Anthony Richardson needs some live reps, even if he just turns around and he hands the football off every time. Like, he needs to see something live. You have to kind of build up those calluses. So I hope Jonathan Taylor gets a few carries here and there. Nothing crazy, okay? But it's nice to see these guys. Look, if they get hurt week 1 of the preseason, gives them a couple weeks to recover. So I like that Shane Steichen is going to put his best players out there onto the field. Hopefully things go well. Hopefully Anthony Richardson throws the ball well. I swear, if they call a design run for Anthony Richardson during a preseason game, I will be highly, highly upset. So now we have something to legitimately look forward to on Sunday. We're going to get to see our guy, Anthony Richardson, play quarterback. We're going to get to see some of these receivers, how they look with him. I'm excited. I hope you are as well. I am also excited about Team USA and the basketball that's going to happen this weekend. Team USA narrowly escaped Serbia yesterday, trailed by as much as 17, were able to rally all the way back and win that game. Okay. Shout out to LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry, the 3 best basketball players, the 3 musketeers of my generation. Okay. And just thinking back on that game, it fully it had this March Madness feeling. Single elimination, anything can happen. You know, you've got a 1 seed playing against a 16 seed. Sorry, Purdue fans. And, the 16 seed gets super hot from 3. That's what happened yesterday. Serbia felt like they just didn't miss there in the first half, right? And they go out to this huge lead, and you see, the higher seeded team, Team USA, clinch up. They get nervous, but this competitive edge comes out, and they really start attacking. The best players take over, and then the 1 seed is able to come all the way back and win. It had a real March Madness feel to it because it is a single elimination tournament, and it was just a blast to watch. I love watching LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Steph. It's been so much fun watching them play together, and those 3 guys are still at the forefront of United States basketball, despite how old all of them are. I believe I read this. Don't hold me to this. This might be wrong. All 3 of those guys would have been the oldest player on the 92 Dream Team. Okay, they're legitimately old. Like, we're in this what I thought was this transitional era of basketball, right? Where the torch is passed from LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry to Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, and Jason Tatum. That's kind of the era that it felt like we were in. And then you sit back and you watch this Team USA team, and it's like, oh, wow. Like, I thought the torch was going to be passed, but no, Tyrese Halliburton's not playing. Jason Tatum isn't playing. Anthony Edwards is coming off the bench. Like, what? What is happening here? And yesterday was a joy to watch. Outside of that, it's been kind of boring. It's been a blast just watching those 3 guys play. And they've got a legitimate challenge in front of them tomorrow at 3:30. Team USA, France. Going to be an awesome game. We get to see LeBron, Steph, and Kevin Durant put, the capes on one more time and play together on the same team. It's going to be exciting and fun to watch. And I expect for France to give the United States all they can handle, and then some. Okay, they have plenty of guys that can shoot the basketball. They've got several NBA guys, and they have a ton of size. France is the only team in the Olympics that has the size to match Team USA. That's why coming into the tournament, people were really high on Canada. And I said here in this chair that if any team was going to upset Team USA for gold, it was going to be France because of the size that they have. And look, let's be honest, guards grow on trees. Okay, there are 6'3", 6'4" guys everywhere that can dribble, pass, and shoot. Okay, and one of the extra things that makes this game a little spicier isn't just that France is the host country. It's also important to know that Joel Embiid chose to play for Team USA over France. That's why he's been booed in every game that he's played. And let's be honest, I don't blame Joel Embiid at all for wanting to play for Team USA as opposed to France. It's like, hey, do you want to go play for the best team in the world? Do you want to go play with LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry? Or do you want to go play center alongside two other centers in Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert? Right? Like, so the crowd's going to be crazy. Okay, they've booed Joel Embiid at every single game that he's played. And France is going to have a legitimate home court advantage. If you were able to watch the game yesterday, it happened at 11:30, so kind of tough. But Germany, when they played France yesterday, loud, raucous crowd. It was rocking. It was loud. Like, that crowd's going to be going absolutely nuts when they play Team USA tomorrow. Okay, so like the home court advantage is legitimate. It's going to be tough for Team USA, but they should win. Okay, let's be honest. They're 16.5-point favorites over France, which is something we've heard before, right? They were 40-point favorites against South Sudan, and they won by 2. They were, 14.5-point favorites yesterday at tip against Serbia, and they won by like 5. Okay, so there's a world where France pushes Team USA to the edge, and there's a world where France beats Team USA. Like, let's be honest here. If Steph Curry doesn't go absolutely nuts yesterday, Team USA probably loses to Serbia. That's just the reality of the situation. But Steph Curry did go nuts. LeBron James did have a triple-double, and Kevin Durant closed the game out with 7 points in the fourth quarter, and that's why they pulled it out. But when it comes to France and just everything that they've got going on, Wembanyama is the real deal, man. He struggled some offensively during the Olympics, but he is more than capable of dominating this game on both ends of the floor. Just ask Nikola Jokic, the best basketball player on the planet. Whenever I think about this game, I have these flashbacks to what happened between the Nuggets and the Spurs earlier this season. It's game 81. No one's watching because the Spurs are terrible. The Nuggets had the 1 seed. The Nuggets, they go up by 21 points in the second to last game of the year. Seems like they have the 1 seed in hand. And then Victor Wembanyama decides to score 17 points in 3 minutes as the Spurs would eventually come back to win that game. The Nuggets didn't get the 1 seed. I feel like if they had, they probably would have come out of the West, and we would have had a Nuggets-Celtics finals, and things probably would have been a little bit different. But I digress. That happened months ago. You don't want to hear about that. Wemby's greatness, though, had a potential impact on who won the title last year. And he is more than capable of having a significant impact on who wins the gold medal this year. He is more than capable of going absolutely nuts and giving France a chance to win this game. Defensively, he's going to change the game because of his size and his length and his quickness. Okay, you can cut the court in half, and he can defend half of it because of his defensive prowess. Okay, he's going to be aggressive and looking to score the basketball. If he has a game where he shoots, 45% from 3, because he's more than capable of doing that, and, he finishes around the rim, which he usually does because he's freakishly tall and long, like, they're going to give Team USA all they can handle, man. And, Wemby is going to be aggressive tomorrow because they need him to be. And more importantly, this is a kid who's not scared of the moment. He's not afraid to go at people. He knows he's really good, which I think kind of plays in his favor. So, going to be interesting. I can't wait for that game. I think a lot of the United States is going to be introduced to the level of basketball player that Victor Wembanyama is tomorrow. The crowd's going to be going nuts. Last chance for us to watch Steph, KD, and LeBron all on the same team. Cannot wait for it. It's going to be absolute cinema. That's going to do it for the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for tuning in. No Dan Dockett Show today. Jim Rome is following me. Head over to YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube page, Indy Sports Ticket. You can check out the live stream over there. Join the chat. Join the conversation. All those important things. Thanks for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. The Jim Rome Show is coming your way next here on Indy Sports Ticket. I'll be back again Monday to talk to you guys from 10 to noon.